Welcome to the Arrington Gavin Show. Real talk, big opinions, and fearless conversations. From the front lines of politics to the latest in pop culture. From breaking sports headlines to the stories that move the world. Nothing's off limits, and nobody's holding back. Arrington Gavin is here to break it down, build it up, and keep it all the way real. So turn it up, lean in, and let's get into it. This is the Arrington Gavin Show.
What is going on, family? Welcome to another great episode of the Arrington Gavin Show, your go-to spot for sharp insights, bold opinions, and unfiltered takes on the biggest stories of the day, whether it's politics, sports, pop culture, or the latest buzz. Look, we're diving deep and keeping it real, so please do me a favor, kick back, stay informed, and get ready to join the conversation. On today's conversation, look, we're honored to have on Mr. Adam Dunigan. He is one of the he's a Democratic candidate running for Virginia's 8th Congressional District, a very packed race. So has to go through primary first, and then if he wins the primary, it will be very historic because he is pursuing to unseat a longtime incumbent Don Bayer, a longtime Democrat who has been in office for at least, I'm gonna say, between 10, 11-ish years in Congress, and he served other positions, lieutenant governor, former lieutenant governor, and former ambassador under the U.S. ambassador under the Obama administration. I mean, again, it will be historic, but I'm telling you right now, man, this is a sharp brother. I've followed him through social media and, reading his resume. By the way, I just got to point out, this show is continuing to get smarter and smarter, and I'm going to tell you why. Because he, I believe, is the third Harvard grad that's been on this show. I'm just saying, parent, mom, I told you I was going to do it. I made it. No, but really, I don't know. We've had so many Harvard graduates. I got my buddy, Newport News Mayor Philip Jones, Harvard guy, right? We recently had Dr. Neela DeFenis, who is the Democratic candidate for Virginia's 2nd Congressional District, also a Harvard grad, and now we have Adam Dunigan. So I hope they just rub some of that genius on me, some of that smartness on me, because I'm gonna tell you right now, I've graduated, right, barely, but I think I did quite well. I did decent. But all jokes aside, though, excited to have him on the show, and we're going to get it going with his reasons for running, right? Talk more about his platform, and just one thing I always, I'll give respect where credit's due, because it's very easy for us to complain of issues or just things happening in our everyday life, right? It's easy to complain, and we hear so many folks giving their tips or reasons why, hey, I know what to do, how I can fix Washington. I know what to do, how I can fix Washington. But the big question is, who can actually do it? Who can actually do that? We've got career politicians talking the same problems while your rent is still high, grocery prices are still high, gas is still high, okay? Your affordability, housing affordability, there is no such thing as affordable housing. I'm sorry. It's just everything is increasing. I just, the other day, I looked at my electricity bill. I'm like, damn, do you see that jump that it just, like, it's insane. And so at the end of the day, what I'm saying is we have so many folks that we continue to hear the promises. I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do that, and it's never met. And folks are tired. That's why we see a lot of folks, leaving from the whole, two political party system and just saying, hey, look, I identify as an independent, right? I'm in the middle, which I've always leaned myself in that realm. But at the end of the day, we know that the importance is we have to get out and vote. And that's where our voices will be heard. I want to continue to repeat that. And I know I sound like a broken record, but we still live in a time where voting turnout is still low. And folks, all I can say is elections has consequences. I don't know if y'all have heard, but have you seen the administration in Washington right now? Yes, elections have consequences. So it's up to us to continue to hire the right people, because at the end of the day, elected officials work for who? The people, the voters. We have to hire the right people in order to make those right decisions. Let me continue on, though. Look, I've mentioned about our guest, Adam Dunigan, someone who will be a new voice into, if he's elected, right? Marine veteran, former CIA officer. He's been public on saying, democracy is under threat and the system is broken. I don't disagree with them on that, because it is broken and it is under threat. At the end of the day, the big questions are, what is the plan? Who's paying for it? And can you actually deliver? And we're going to hopefully find that out on today's conversation. So again, you're in for a treat as we welcome Marine veteran, former CIA officer, as I mentioned, Harvard grad, Adam Dunigan on the show. He's running for Virginia's 8th Congressional District. Before we move forward to that, though, I got to thank you, all the people, the listeners, viewers out there that continues to support the Arrington Gavin show. I truly appreciate it. You guys taking the time out your busy schedule. As you know, we drop new episodes Monday through Friday at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts, whether that's Apple, iHeart, whether here a little echo. Hold on real quick, guys. There we go. Whether that's iHeart, Apple, Spotify, just name a few. You can also listen to us on the radio airway. Shout out to our affiliates, KSHP 1400 AM and 107.1 FM Las Vegas, where you can tune into the Arrington Gavin show Fridays at 8 p.m. Pacific time. Again, that's only on KSHP 1400 AM and 107.1 FM Las Vegas. Then we're going to head over to the Metro Atlanta area to WDJY 99.1 FM Straight Talk, where you can listen into the show weeknights at 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And then lastly, we're going to head over to the New Orleans area. I was thinking of a nickname, so don't get mad at me, New Orleans. I was thinking of, you got so many nicknames. But New Orleans, WBOK 12:30 a.m. What New Orleans is talking about. You can tune into the Arrington Gavin show weeknights at 7 p.m. Central Time. So we're honored and thrilled to be a part of our part of those stations where we can continue to stretch out our audience and just our viewerships and grow because we want to continue to push out just great conversations, because I feel like that's where we're missing, y'all. We're just missing conversation. And look, everybody's welcome here on this show, regardless of political views. Everybody is welcome. All I request is that, hey, you don't make any hate towards any specific groups or individuals, but for the most part, hey, we can agree to disagree, but everyone is welcome. So that right there, I want to thank you all for your continued support. Be sure to subscribe if you have not done so to our YouTube channel. Share with a friend, share with family, the Arrington Gavin show, as we continue to grow in our subscribers, viewers, and the whole 9 yards. So I truly appreciate that, my friends. I believe that is all I got for y'all. Well, look, we're going to head to a quick commercial break. Do not go anywhere, because you're in for a treat. We got a great conversation on tap for you here on the Arrington Gavin show. We'll be right back after these commercial breaks.
What's up, y'all? Welcome now.
And we still in traffic.
Don't look familiar, do I? Not in this seat.
Hey, what's that you listening to?
Here to host today.
Hey, turn it up.
With me?
Yeah, this that new GoatVerse app. I got you.
So y'all want to know where the goats are? They're off on the sidelines.
Looking for fresh, relevant content wherever you go?
What was the name of that he said?
Introducing GoatVerse TV.
GoatVerse, that's what it's called.
The free streaming app that brings you the best podcasts, current events, and thought-provoking opinions all in one place. Download it now from the Apple Store or Play Store. In Goats, we trust.
Every man has a story to tell. Your ambitions, your achievements, your legacy. Your suit should reflect that story, crafted precisely, designed for impact, and tailored exclusively for you. We work with only the finest fabrics, luxurious wools, silk, linen, and blends from world-renowned mills in Italy, the UK, and India. These fabrics are the foundation of custom suits that exude elegance and stand the test of time. But a suit isn't just about fabric, it's about fit, and it's about confidence, and it all starts with you. When you work with me, you'll receive a personalized consultation, whether in person or over Zoom. Together, we'll explore your vision and discuss your needs, and we're gonna bring your ideas to life. My journey as a designer includes apprenticing under New York-based designer Clavon Leonard, showcasing collections at New York Fashion Week, Algeria Fashion Week, and the prestigious Baltimore Met Gala. That experience is what we bring to every suit we create, from weddings to corporate events and everything in between. We specialize in crafting one-of-a-kind suits for life's most significant moments. Dapper Luke has been recognized as one of Baltimore's best menswear in 2023, and I was honored to be one of the 10 designers selected for the prestigious Baltimore Met Gala. With over 900 satisfied clients, we proudly serve Virginia Beach and Baltimore. bringing world-class designs to these incredible communities. We don't just make suits, we craft confidence. Your suit will fit your body, your style, and it will tell your story. Book your free online personal consultation today. Visit www.dapperluke.com.
6'10", number 1 pick, 16 seasons, College Player of the Year, All-Rookie Standout. Joe Smith built a career on grit, consistency, and showing up.
Greatness isn't just about the game. It's about how you show up every day. Rugged Evolution now offers body care products for every man, because not every man wears a beard, but every man deserves care. Greatness doesn't fade.
It evolves. Rugged Evolution Beard Care. Every beard deserves to be legendary, and every man deserves care. Alrighty, my friends, welcome back to the show. Welcome back. Thank you for sticking with us. As I mentioned, I'm honored to have on Marine, former CIA officer Adam Dunigan, who is one of the candidates running in this very packed race, running for Virginia's 8th Congressional District, which is currently held, as I mentioned, by longtime Congressman Don Beyer. Without further ado, look, let me go in and bring on our man of the hour, Mr. Adam Dunigan. Adam, how you doing, my friend?
Hey, Arrington, I'm doing okay. How are you doing, man?
I'm doing great, man. Thank you so much for taking the time out your busy schedule to come here on the show. I know you are extremely busy because it's not easy, running a campaign, especially in a very large and, a big district, and it's a packed race. So I understand you are everywhere. Like I said, I've been following the social media page, and I see you from here and there and this and that. First of all, have you been getting any rest? Have you feel rested at all?
Absolutely not. Democracy doesn't sleep, and neither do I, Arrington.
I know that's right, man. I know that's right.
I'm being kind of silly about it, obviously, but I mean it honestly. I have been working harder now as a political candidate than I ever did as an intelligence officer or as a Marine. Just the number of hours and the mental tax of trying to keep this all together. I knew that a campaign would be hard. People always say it, but I had no idea that it would be as time intensive as it is. But I would also say it's pretty rewarding too. Like the fact that it's working so well, the fact that you and I are even introduced at this point is an indication that the hours I'm putting in are going somewhere. So here I am.
Absolutely, man. And before I really start the conversation, forgive me. I want to, let you know, thank you for your service. By the way, that's something that should always continue to be said, because I'm the son of a retired Army colonel, and so I understand the sacrifices that you had to make in order to, defend and serve our country. So again, I want to thank you for your service. If you don't mind, Adam, I mentioned just a brief, small background about yourself, but anything I forgot, if you don't mind kind of, sharing a little bit about yourself to our listeners.
Sure. The general arc of what brought me to being a politician now, which I did not see in my future, but here I am anyway. I grew up in Los Angeles. I was a kind of a screw up as a kid. I barely passed high school. I joined the Marine Corps because there wasn't a whole lot of opportunity for getting out of LA for me, and that was the fastest ticket out. And then, the military taught me some leadership and discipline and commitment to service. So I followed that up into a career at CIA as a case officer. I was overseas. I was undercover. I was doing the work. Not quite what you see in the movies. I mean, I would love to be Jason Bourne, but I absolutely am not. But I think I hit a wall in my time at CIA, because it's hard to be outside of, my country and watch it backslide towards what I consider fascism, the cracks in the foundations of American democracy. I figured I could do something more, and that's what put me in the race.
Awesome. Look, man, you again got a compelling story, personal story that is mentioned Marine, CIA officer, Harvard grad. But I want to ask you, why should voters believe that translate into being an effective legislator in Congress? Because you mentioned like you did not see politics at all in your future, and now you're a candidate hoping to unseat a guy who's been in office for quite some years.
Yeah, I think one of the paradoxes of modern politics, our politics right now, is that the more somebody wants to be a politician, the less they are probably qualified to actually hold office and wield power over their fellow citizens. Like it really does take a certain archetype to want that kind of responsibility and power. Which is, and I realize I'm saying this as a current candidate. I think one of the benefits that my time at CIA specifically gives me is proof to the public. You know, I served there for well over a decade. I have 17 years of federal service. And I was happy to be in the background. Like one of the things that you need to, like one of the core personality traits at CIA is not seeking attention. You have to be in the background. You have to be undercover and operating under the radar. So I spent a long time not asking for attention. I spent a long time not in front of cameras or giving speeches or seeking the attention, the spectacle of modern politics, right? Mm-hmm. So if I am out here right now, if I resigned my commission at CIA in protest because of what I saw inside, and I'm out here now telling my fellow citizens to wake up, this is really as bad as you think it is, mm-hmm. that should probably freak you out. And then I'm hoping that sense of integrity, that like I didn't wait to get fired, right? I resigned intentionally because I thought there was a mission to be accomplished. There was something I could do. And I took the leap to do it. That is not the case for a lot of other candidates in the races around the country. And it's also not the case for most of our elected officials. They were born rich, they're going to die rich, and they were put on that golden pipeline into politics. And that's, if I'm outside of that, I hope that resonates with at least a few people.
I hear you. One thing I've shared this on the show many a times is, look, and it's no disrespect to our, elected officials personally, but I am not a fan of, career politicians. I'm not a fan of the fact that, when it's campaign season, when they first started, a lot of them have said, oh, no, I'm believe in term limits. I'm only hoping to do this, maybe 2 terms, 3 terms, this and that. And then I would like to move on and, assist or be anywhere. And we don't see that. We see folks. I mean, I shared a story not too long ago of, and look, I'm a fan of this guy, but Congressman, James Clyburn out of South Carolina, who just announced he's running for re-election at 85 years old. Not being ageist, but I'm just
spring
saying,
chicken, young boy, young sweet 85-year-old boy. Yeah.
I mean, and I hear the same sort of messaging that a lot of our longstanding elected officials say. Look, we started the battle and we have a lot more things to do. We haven't finished it, and I'm just like, well, can you help out on the side and still continue that fight? Why does that fight have to be you in that leadership role? Because there's so many I feel like affected, qualified individuals that can say, hey, look, I'm ready to, to take the baton and do this and do that. But we don't see that there. All that being said, Adam, when you first had the mindset of like, hey, look, I want to take a leap of faith. I want to practice what I preach, right? I see an issue that's occurring. I want to do something about it. I want to run for office. But what made you say, I can do this and unseat an individual who has been in office for, as I mentioned, 11 plus years in Congress in a very blue district currently, in a very blue district? And like, what makes you a qualified candidate?
Rage, anger, honestly. I think one thing that you lose the longer you stay in power, the longer that you stay in an elected position, and with hundreds of millions of dollars behind you or in your bank account, is you lose the perspective of the normal person, what we're actually living through. And in your intro to the show, I heard you saying, affordable housing is a lie. There is no affordable housing. People are going to have to necessarily make compromises to afford where they live. People are now, because of this Iran war and the spike in gas prices, we're going to see the index rise. And the anxiety and level of stress that puts on normal people like you and me. I am in this group of like regular taxpayers that are out here suffering the consequences. The level of stress that puts on us, and the level of anger that you and I and everybody else probably listening to this show feels, that is not reflected from Washington at all. It is go along to get along. It is coddling politics. It is just give me one more term and I'm going to solve this thing for you. I'm not coming in saying I'm going to solve it. I will do my level best from a genuine position of curiosity and integrity. I am not coming from one of those pipelines of money and backroom power networks that has created the permanent political class that has led us to the point where we are in this country right now. That is where I actually really do like my incumbent, the guy that I'm running against here. He is a good man and a good Democrat, and I don't believe he's the worst example of like corruption or backroom power networks. But I will say, if we want to get and retain enough power to make it matter, to like start building positive momentum in the direction of progress in America, it cannot be 80-year-olds with $200 million in the bank. It just can't. Yeah. Younger voters will never follow us, and we will never be able to retain the White House, the legislature, or, God help us if we can get the Supreme Court back. We'll never be able to do that when it's 80-year-olds in the driver's seat. We just can't.
And what I'm hearing, from you is the relatability is not there at all. I mean, I speak on, the low voting turnout here on this show. I try to advocate for a lot of young people to, just build the knowledge, right? We watch a lot what's going on a federal level, but we ignore locally, like what happens in your backyard, right?
Yep.
And so I'm always pursuing, just mentioning, and don't get me wrong, there's a large number of young people continuing to get involved, but it still could build up, and we need more young folks. And it's just like, how can I even want to pay attention when I see old people just back and forth? And as you mentioned, with money in the bank, that I don't know when I will ever see that see that kind of money. It's just like you can't relate it. And so whenever they say, hey, look, these issues are this and that and the other, folks are kind of just, they hear it in one side, but it's out in the other, because realistically they're like, but you're living it up. You're doing good for yourself. You're this and that. So I totally understand where you're coming from that perspective.
The phrase that I've been using is inherent hypocrisy. Even if you are not literally a hypocrite based on the way that you live, or like how your family made their fortune or whatever, you are still inherently hypocritical within the system that was created around you and for you as the privileged class. And it's not crazy, avant political theory to say, like, if we want to take our country back, if we want this country to stop losing its mind and invading a new country every 3 weeks, it's going to require some adults in the room. And these guys have proven themselves to either be disinterested or unable to be that adult in the room. And I can, I hope. I don't know.
Look, you mentioned earlier, you've seen the threats abroad firsthand. What are the top 2, possibly 3 threats to America right now that the public may be underestimating?
Oh, that's easy. So the first one is this war in Iran. I consider it an illegal action by the administration that never should have happened. The fact that we have caskets coming home draped in the American flag of our service members that were killed over there. I can go into like the deep theory about why this shouldn't have happened, or why this is not advantageous for us as a country. But you can walk outside and look at your local gas pump and see exactly why this is going to hurt American families from a very practical perspective. I, as an intelligence officer, I have mixed it up with the Russians, the Chinese, the Iranians, and I do know the Iranians to be a very capable service. One of the reasons I blew up online recently was because I was giving some analysis saying, like, look, this is where I see this going in terms of economic impact and the potential for terrorism, sabotage, and the risk to American lives abroad and here at home. And since I made that video, I think the data has borne out that fear was real. We had a shooting, and this is for your listeners. I'm in Northern Virginia, my district, and one of my volunteers, she's a lovely girl. She goes to Old Dominion University, where somebody who was probably radicalized by what they saw in the news about the U.S. actions in Iran walked into a classroom directly next to hers. She attends the class in the next room over, and she the ROTC instructor in the room next door was murdered. Luckily, the kid stepped in, and it wasn't a worse mass shooting, but like that's already happening. So that's one for sure. And then the second I would say is the Russians, or the influence of the Russian intelligence services on our position within Europe. The wedges they're driving between us and our allies abroad in NATO and in Europe especially, and our hesitance under the Biden administration to aid Ukraine, and our, what I would say, subservience to Russian foreign policy under the Trump administration has been shameful. And that is not something that I can quantify in terms of physical risk to people in the country, so it is a bit more esoteric. But I would say that the insidious nature of the Russian intelligence services and Vladimir Putin as president of Russia, I cannot understate, as a former intelligence officer, like how wary we should be of the ties that this administration is creating with the Russians, and the way that will degrade our interests as a country long-term in foreign policy. So those are my 2.
Gotcha. Wow. Now, as a former CIA case officer, how do you balance the civil liberties with national security, especially in an era of domestic extremism?
Ooh, just an easy question for me today. I don't have a very satisfying answer for this. I think you can. I think intuitively, we've already lived through 2003 and the advent of the Patriot Act and the excesses of the intelligence services. My experience within CIA, at least, and working alongside some NSA folks and seeing how the U.S. government uses, at least the intelligence services that I was part of that I saw firsthand. The way that those services used data on American citizens and respected civil liberties was actually pretty robust. I'm not trying to be like a fangirl for the CIA or anything, but I am saying if we had intersections operationally with any American citizen, there were clearance procedures and oversight and things that were triggered that I feel pretty confident that would protect the intent and not just the letter, but the spirit of the law for protecting American citizens' civil liberties. I believe that. What I don't believe right now is that in a time of war, when it's a war that's headed by the incompetence and Nepo babies and rich kids that are in the current administration, I think those same tools that I trusted while I was in the intelligence services, those same tools could easily be weaponized against American citizens in very nefarious ways. But even outside of that, I would be more uncomfortable with the ties being created between this administration and big data and tech, unregulated AI, Palantir, and the mass harvesting of facial recognition, audio data, location data. That is happening completely outside of our government as a result of an unregulated tech space. So yeah, we can and should keep our focus on what the government does to its citizens and whether we're abiding by the spirit of the law around civil liberties. But I would say that the violations of American civil liberties right now that matter are coming from the tech space, because that is unregulated and it has deep networks and financial lines into Trump's pocket specifically and everybody around him. That I would say should freak you out more.
Yeah, and I think and you know what, it's interesting that you bring that up, because I'm for sure, and I hope folks see it firsthand. I mean, I was discussing on the show a while back on how the right is buying, trying to buy the media narrative, right? I mean, we see his buddies currently buying Paramount is buying everything, literally. CBS News, CNN, if they for sure win the bidding war with Warner Brothers. I mean, we see an administration that has literally wiped out the whole press room to media that favors him more, right? Pod Bros. I mean, it's funny me saying Pod Bros because I have a podcast, but anyway,
you are destroying America, Arrington.
I'm sorry, my bad, but it's interesting when you bring that up, because the tech is, and I mean, we mentioned because I'm reading your platform now, you mentioned Doge with his work with Elon Musk, which, I mean, the love-hate relationship that they have going on right now. I want to talk more on your campaign, like just some of your issues that you're tackling. Okay, restoring accountability. If you don't mind kind of impacting that for our listeners on the accountability piece, because I feel like that's a big thing that is preventing folks from going to the voting booths, because it's like, what accountability? These folks are never, they're not transparent. They never, all they do is, hit us up when it's time for re-election. We don't hear anything from them, and they give us talking points. They don't give us the meat and potatoes. They give us a headline and not actual, policy, details, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it's slogans versus results. I fully agree. So accountability, the way I categorize this in my mind is there's two layers. There's the accountability of an elected official to their electorate, to the voters, which I have thoughts on. But I think what's more important right now is the accountability within the government when people break the law. Doge is a great example here in this area. So in this area, we have 300,000 people collectively displaced as a result of Doge cuts, right? So that's families, that's husbands, that's wives, that's dependents, everybody. That's an entire subset of this community that probably moved here to work for the federal government because they wanted to serve their country in some way, or they saw the federal service as like a noble cause and a dependable career. And so they trained their whole lives at elite institutions, or they got their PhDs to come do this job, which they were doing relatively well when it comes to USAID. And then because it's so easy to play to the emotional aspect of people's brains, being like, these government fat cats, they all got to go. These kids came in, and I don't know if you've watched or if your listeners have watched some of these depositions of the kids that were running Doge that came through that fired these doctors, experts in their field. It's offensive. It's not okay to have these amateurs come in and fire people within buildings that they didn't even belong inside of, let alone be in charge of. It's a total inversion of what it should mean to make decisions that affect entire communities or families or whatever. And I'm not saying that government ain't got no fat to trim. It does 100%, but it's a scalpel versus the stupid chainsaw that Elon Musk was dancing around on the stage with. So that's accountability. Sorry,
No, you're fine. No, you're fine. No. I mean, and this is what I love about this, doing this, because
I got passion, obviously. Yeah.
No, as I mentioned before, hey, this is a conversation like we're having over drinks right now. It is insane, the fact that yes, we have witnessed TV personalities become leaders of in charge of major agencies with absolutely no background whatsoever. And to add on what you're saying, there's kids being brought in that is letting go of highly qualified, experienced servants, and it's just it's a shame. It really
it's
is
wrong, and I think it was probably illegal. We'll see how these legal cases bear out. But I guess when I was referencing the accountability aspect, the Constitution doesn't matter unless we hold people to it. That's the accountable to. The government must be accountable to the Constitution. So if anybody violated the Constitution or federal statutes, broke the law in some way or form, there has to be consequences. And it can't be a sternly worded tweet from the Democratic side. It can't be a finger wag on a television show. Like, it has to be legal consequences, because if we're not a nation of laws, what are we? So that's number one. So that's the first side of accountability. And then the other side of accountability that I am more personally interested in demonstrating to my electorate here, as part of my campaign, I made this personal financial ethics pledge, which essentially says, once I get into office, I will not trade stocks in office. I will put my money in a blind trust. I will leave my books open to voters to review at any point. Like 24/7, you can review exactly what I'm doing. And then most importantly, any income that I make beyond my congressional salary, I need my salary, I have to pay my mortgage and stuff. But any income that I make beyond my salary, I will donate 50% of that back to my constituents in the forms of programs for veterans, working families, and retirees to show some show of contrition between politicians and the electorate. We've all seen politicians go in broke and come out millionaires, and that is wrong. It just is. We don't punish success, but when we know that success comes at the expense of the communities that put them there, that's not okay. And that's the kind of accountability that I think people want to see more than anything right now. They just want to trust that whoever's there is doing the job for them, and nobody has it.
You warn about an authoritarian project underway. Now, who exactly, if you want to answer this, who exactly, are you referring to, and what evidence, could you point out for that?
If you want, I can go down the entire roster from the C-suite at DHS that resulted in the deaths of 2 American citizens on camera, undeniable, resulted in the deaths of many, many more non-citizens and a couple of U.S. citizens within the custody of that organization. The fear that was intentionally created, Dan Bongino. If you want a good podcast recommendation, get out there and listen to Robert Evans' Behind the Bastards on Dan Bongino. A man is obviously unqualified to be in the position, and obviously has some leanings towards a guy with a little mustache from the 1930s. Clearly, it's obvious to everybody, right? That's a good example of a higher up rot within the American system. Trump, I don't believe he has a plan, but I do think he wants to be a dictator. That's pretty obvious. But what's scary is he has a lot of little creepy weirdos around him, like Stephen Miller, that are very smart, very acerbic about how to navigate the federal bureaucracy to get what they want. And so they're good at seeding these things. They're good at putting people that are either know-nothings or actively collaborating with them. Hegseth at the DOD or DOW, whatever, now is a good example of that. They're unqualified or they are qualified, but working at direct cross-interest with the American people. And I think if you want an example of the absurd, we just launched a war in Iran. We've killed thousands of people in Iran at this point. We have American service members coming home dead. The gas prices are up at the pump. And your defense secretary is out there looking like a WWE character, making quips instead of educating you on what the goals of the American military is. And that is to me, it is personally offensive. It makes me very, very angry, and I have to find the humor in it, because if I don't, I will go go do something unhinged. Yeah.
Hey, trust me. Look, are we still on for those drinks? By the way, no, but it's like
100%.
It's but hey, you're nailing on the head there, because there was literally a post of Cash Patel signing autographs or at a training site. I'm like, dude, what are we doing here? So I totally hear what you're where you're going with. Now if elected, what specific policies would you push to protect democracy beyond just messaging? Because I go back to folks folks hear messaging 24/7, right? We hear this, we hear that, but what exactly? How would you push that protect democracy?
Sure. I mean, I could bore your listeners with some like real hyper detailed policy right now, but my main priorities when I get in is I am looking to take money out of politics. So overturning Citizens United, which would require a lot of, overturning Citizens United would be a pretty big effort, but that would require a lot of consensus building with center-right Republicans as well. And if there's one thing I learned at CIA how to do, it's like talk people around an issue and get them to come to the conclusion that I think makes more sense to me. So I want to throw myself at that problem a lot, because if we break up the big money networks behind a lot of these politicians, a lot of the people that are actively in the way of American progress will evaporate, because that's what they depend on to stay in office. So that's one. I do have really smart ideas. If your listeners want to go to my website and check out, like I have ideas on nuclear energy policy, trying to scale out safe nuclear small modular reactors to bring down energy costs in the area for my district. I have pretty smart ideas, and I'm developing new policy on housing and the application of affordable principles to the housing market here. And also reckoning with the past, for a lot of Black communities in my area, we still have the problem of de facto and de jure segregation in housing as a result of redlining that was done in the 1960s. And ain't nobody talking about it in this area. And if we do want to start like reimagining what the American community should look like, or at least my portion of Virginia here, we do probably have to engage with the historical and intellectual past that we're coming out of. And I think that lack of introspection might have held us back in the past too. So I have eyes on that. And then last, I think shoring up our, or maybe fixing the cracks in the institutions that we've lost so far. So I would very, very much be looking to put together or reconstitute something very much like USAID, give back jobs, and start projecting American soft power in rational ways to not only save lives abroad because it's the right thing to do, but also show some contrition and give dignity back to the people who are so disrespected by this administration.
I want to, discuss affordability with you, because one thing we all know when it comes to, politics, it's the money, right? That's one of the most important things, because folks are like saying, okay, look, everything's expensive. What in your platform, Adam, I'll say it like this. What is one concrete policy you'd push in your, say, first 100 days to actually lower, say, costs for Virginians in the 8th Congressional District?
I can give you a few different examples. A lot of these, the problem is from a federal seat, I really can only put my thumb on the scale so much on local issues, and like housing, for example, I think is the most pressing. Housing and energy are the most pressing issues here. So I would put my thumb on the scale for sure with ideas. And I do actually have a policy advisory group that I've already constituted of some very forward-thinking experts in this field. I would put my thumb on the scale for R1 housing. Essentially, like the way housing coding is done requires a certain amount of parking, even though our use for cars overall has declined over time. So we're still constructing things to 1960 standards, updating that, reimagining like what construction could look like with a faster pace to develop new areas. The inclusion of ADUs, allowing people to like build extra units onto the houses, their houses they already own. That's so blocked by this NIMBY attitude. I'm sure you're familiar. Like everybody's talking about this. Everybody wants affordable housing. Nobody wants it next to them, and we have to break that at a certain point. And there's going to be a certain pain point for a lot of these communities that bought their houses a long time ago. But like, unless we're willing to endure that pain for the benefit of our community, then like, what are we as Americans? Like that's completely antithetical to who we are as a people. So I need to talk people around on that. And I think I can. And then in energy, I think expanding in Virginia, where I'm at here, We are smothered in data centers that are driving up electricity costs, having environmental impacts, and we are funding them through tax subsidies that are just absurd at this point. Like, the state is giving away free money to these companies to build these data centers that not only are they like harming the community, but they're also completely disrupting the job market. There is an imbalance in how we view their economic participation. In my policies, if you go on my website, you can see I am all about rebalancing, or at least coming back to a very practical view on how we view their participation in our economy.
Yeah, that's been a big discussion during this midterms, is the whole, clean energy versus the Dominion. It's like it's really a big thing that's happening in the well, I can say, Hampton Roads area where but like, as you mentioned, I mean, it's happening all over the Commonwealth. Let's talk healthcare. How would you increase the access to healthcare? We're in a period now where we're witnessing folks losing healthcare, which is extremely like, I can't imagine ever like living during a time when you lose healthcare. Like, I never thought that would ever happen, but it has. But how do you tackle increasing access to healthcare?
So yeah, this is a super deep discussion, but the easiest way that I can explain it is we already have examples of single payer healthcare or socialized medicine, if you want to use the really scary term that freaks Republicans out. We already have examples of that in the US, and the best one, and I take advantage of this now, is the Veterans Administration. Mm-hmm. VA healthcare has a lot of problems, and there's a lot of bloat in that system too, but I will tell you, as somebody who has recently had to start using it because I quit my job and I need healthcare, like I'm at the VA hospital in DC all the time. It can work, and it does work, and it's a massive system that provides healthcare to Americans all over the country. So we have replicable policies and statutes that we could be using. But if you're asking how I, like, from my seat day one when I get in, if I'm pushing legislation on healthcare, what that really looks like is decoupling healthcare from employment. It is insane that we are the only developed nation that ties your ability to access healthcare to whether or not you are employed, or how you are employed, or whether that company you're employed at wants to actually provide you healthcare or give you a health savings account and let you make your own decisions. Like, we have such a patchwork application of policy in this country, and I can't fix that from Virginia. I know that, but I do know that right now, me and a lot of the other freshman Congress people that'll be going to Washington in November, we are more willing now than ever to apply a new paradigm or creative thinking to the healthcare issue and start approaching and passing legislation to at least decouple the insurance industry from employers, because not only is insurance predatory, but employers are profit-based and predatory as well. So in that system, the only person that loses is the consumer, and I want to disrupt that.
A couple of things I want to toss at you that is out of the list of questions I've been asking, and I appreciate you again taking the time out your schedule to come here for this conversation. In Virginia, the district changes. The battle over district is a big thing happening here in the Commonwealth. And look, you have it now where it's a possible push for 10-1 maps, and even though it's a nonpartisan issue, it has been obviously the way it's promoted on television. Hey, the right saying no, the left is saying yes, and X, Y, and Z. And I'll be frank, and I've been very open with my listeners here. I'm not a fan of gerrymandering in general. I don't think gerrymandering is a cool thing, regardless, because I feel as though it takes away the power from the voters.
Real edgy take, Arrington. Jesus.
It's just like I'm not a fan of it, but I understand when you think of, look, Washington has passed, well, the administration preferably has hit up Texas, North Carolina, Ohio. I feel like I'm missing another state that has done the whole redistricting mid census. Have you been asked during the campaign trail, what's your take on the whole district change here in the Commonwealth?
Constantly, yeah. So for anybody that doesn't know the process for running for Congress, each state sets their own kind of rules for what it takes to get on the ballot. So here in Virginia, the Democratic Party of Virginia says you need 1,000 signatures from registered voters in your district to get on the ballot. So that means me and my friends and volunteers and everybody who's working on the campaign now. That means us out on the sidewalk talking to people. And this is the main thing that they ask about. What do you think about redistricting? What I personally think about redistricting is this. It feels bad. It should feel bad because it is not a good principle by which to govern. Winning on technicality by drawing out a little map to get the right mix of people so you can squeak out a win is not what like our founders envisioned for this country. And it's not something that we should be encouraging as a means of governance. However, if Virginia fails to pass this redistricting, if Virginia fails to pass the referendum on redistricting, and we fail to get a meaningful majority in Congress to put a speed brake on the Trump administration for the last 2 years of Trump's second term, then that will be another example of Democrats being too hesitant or too passive to use the legal means available to us to take a moral stand against the excesses that we're already seeing. I do not want to stand on the back end of 2028 and say, well, I really wish we would have, taken a stand on this. I really wish we would have used every legal means. No, we have to do that now. So I think like you, I don't like it. It feels bad and we should feel bad about it, but it is the most expedient means of putting that speed brake on the administration. And I worry about the consequences of hesitating in a moment like this. So I'll be voting yes for it here in Virginia. I hope everybody else does. I do think, though, we need to contextualize how risky this is and the responsibility from us as Democrats. If we were to pull this off and win in these new districts, the responsibility is twice as high on us at that point to govern well and make sure that we earn back the trust of those voters who we are necessarily trying to disenfranchise through this process.
Adam, I also wanted to toss at you, and I think I might know your response on this, but term limits. That's also another big thing that is continuing to. I mean, that's a long conversation that always continues to be brought back up. But what's your take on term limits?
Yes, and yes, and yes. I need to get smart on the academics behind this. There's a lot of great writing already done. There's a whole academic body of knowledge on what the proper term limits for executive positions, for legislature positions. There's a lot out there, and there's a lot of countries that do it well. I mean, Mexico, right down next door to us in the south, they have a singular presidency where it's a 6-year term and you only get one term, and it seems to be going well for them, especially coming out of the corruption of the past. Right, for our legislature, for Washington, right there across the river from me. I don't know exactly what it is. I would be inclined to say that 8 years in the House, 12 years in the Senate, 8 years in the presidency. I'm not mad about it. 12 years in the House, 12 years in the Senate. I'm not mad about it. I just know that there is a shelf life to the utility of an elected official because, like I said before, you cannot be in the halls of power and around that kind of money and around that kind of influence for that long and stay right. You can't. You will necessarily go bad. And I want churn. I want the same concept that every major corporation and sports team and educational institution, I want churn. If you're there, if you're in the same position at a company for forever, it shows that you have not learned anything, done anything, or gained any value to that organization, right? And every minute that you're there, you're not training the next generation behind you. If you're a sports coach, for example, if you lose the championship 2 seasons in a row, as we've done as Democrats, you get fired. There is churn. There's an assistant coach ahead. There's a bench behind you that fills that space. And even if you're doing well, you go out on a high note and that bench still fills your space because the turnover in positions is what brings in new ideas, new paradigms, new ways to see these problems and new solutions to apply to the problems that linger from before. Changing positions, me in this race, you were very kind in saying that it would be historic if I unseat Congressman Beyer. I really respect the man. He's a good dude and a good Democrat. I want to take his successes forward. And I want to expand on the capacity that he might not have been using. And the only way that we can do that is changing the person in the seat. It doesn't have to be me. I hope it's me, but it doesn't have to be me. But it can't be the same guys that led us into the national moment that we are right now. that's my mentality behind it.
Here you go. Here, the 8th district. Now, your district relies heavily on federal workforce. Now, what's your plan to protect those jobs in an era of budget cuts and the whole restructuring process? Like, what's your answer on that?
Yeah, this is. I wish I had a smarter answer for you on this one. I'm still getting smart on like what kind of legislation can
Harvard didn't prove that for you, by the way. I'm messing with that, man. I'm just
No, it's I'm telling you, the higher you go up in Ivy League, the dumber we are. So no, I'm trying to get smart on what kind of policy could actually be effective for federal workers without highlighting them as targets. See, the problem when I get in, if and when I win my election, right? November 3rd, I win the election. I'm inaugurated in January 20th. I hope. Let's see what goes on with this White House. What I get in day one, any legislation that me and other Democrats put together is necessarily dead on arrival because we have 2 more years of the Trump administration who will kill it in committee or veto it if it gets to their desk because they're not going to give a win to Democrats. So what that means is my policy agenda, especially within the context of the new war in Iran with like budget constraints and everything else that's going to follow on from that, I have to respond. I have to be a little bit more agile in how I'm going to apply that. There's a whole debate right now within the federal services that I'm pretty involved in about how they rank and rate performance of federal officers. So like outstanding, excellent, average, below standards, whatever. Like, so it used to be a Likert scale of about 5 points, and they're trying to boil it down into 3, which is a much more subjective rating system. The theory behind this, and I'm inclined to believe it, is that it is a mechanism to blur the lines between the groups and give the administration, or hypothetically like another DOJ adjacent entity coming in, the ability to fire federal workers with even less oversight because there's even less data on the performance of the people that they're firing. I would use my position in Congress to block those kinds of proposed changes, or at least shine a spotlight onto the kind of shenanigans that the Trump administration and the very, very capable operators that they have behind them who are intent on dismantling the federal system. Like, I don't know exactly what the answer is, but I do know that like continuing to hollow out our institutions is probably not going to gain us any ground on any of the things that we claim to care about in terms of affordability or values or rule of law. I want to make sure that there is a speed break on that from my first term in Congress. And then when we get a Democratic president in 2028, you better believe I'm coming correct with an entire legislative agenda that we can act on day one of that presidency.
A few more questions I want to throw at you, Adam, and I'm looking at my time, so I'm going to try and read them pretty quick to you. I see you said you want to defend educators and universities. Now, what does that look like in policy terms?
Yeah, in policy terms, what it really means is the prevention of the federal government from inserting social agenda or social purity testing into university processes. Or on the flip side of that, giving universities the space to know that they do not have to be orthodox lockstep with the administration in order to continue to receive federal funds. The easiest thing to highlight on that is the destruction of Department of Education. Right now, there is an entire gap of where federal funding is even going to come from, and that's making everybody in the educational sphere pearl clutch and try to make sure that their curricula, their public-facing approach to education is more in line with the Trump administration because they want to resume receiving federal funds, or they don't want an interruption in their grant programs or whatever. I want to put up blocks, or at least a stuttered approach to how any education policy is modified to at least give those institutions more breathing room to know that tomorrow the lights couldn't go off. You know, I want to make sure that they have their funding guaranteed to them, and that the processes by which the executive branch and the former Department of Education, whatever comes after that to fill the gap, they abide by those rules. And so our educational institutions around the country can make informed decisions about how they plan to educate, America's youth and the generation of tomorrow.
You mentioned earlier the sad tragedy that we all, had witnessed, sadly, through social media, on the news. 2 U.S. citizens' life were lost in Minneapolis. That being said, should ICE be reformed, defunded, or even replaced entirely?
Abolished, like out the gate. That has to be the basic minimum position of the American people, and it should be the position of the American government. It does get a little complicated. I've learned a lot since I've been in about the different categorizations between DHS and ERO, and ICE is more just like a brand laid on top of a bunch of different like whatever. I don't care. If you've been part of an organization or a branded part of a large organization that has murdered American citizens and had the government lie on their behalf, you got to go. There's no way that you can stay within the federal architecture. The American people won't trust you again, and you should not trust yourselves to execute the mission that you claim to do. I know there are probably good officers within, ICE right now. There might even be some listening to this. And if you are listening to this, I say resign, get out with your dignity now. And when the hammer of consequences come for the organization, like you will be looked on more favorably by your fellow citizens and history than you would if you stayed in this organization, sullied as it is. I can relate to those guys too, because I fought in the war on terror as a Marine, right? I was given a gun, a flag on my shoulder, and told I was doing the right thing in Afghanistan. It's the same thing, and a cash bonus, right? They offered these kids a cash bonus. They gave them a gun and a badge and told them like the enemy is, that brown community over there. It wasn't, but people, for better or worse, like we are social animals. We follow like leadership. We fall into these hierarchies. The difference, though, is that we are thinking animals, and we can break these patterns. And so I am all about rehiring, revetting, and making sure that training is in place, that whatever comes after ICE actually abides by the standards that are set out by our Constitution and the values that we claim to have as inscribed at the bottom of the Statue of Liberty. But what I do know is that ICE gotta go. There's no equivocating on this. And anybody who is, even Democrats, I will attack them full-throatedly as well. If you are still hesitant on the very obvious moral issue of ICE being abolished or not, I have no patience for it.
Adam, look, I could talk for you for hours, but why should folks, my last question, we have about 60 seconds. Why should folks vote for Adam Dunigan to represent their Virginia's 8th congressional district?
Why should folks vote for me? I am as angry as you. I am as angry as you. I feel it in the same way you do. I am like, I have a lot of experience behind me. I think I have the expertise to do the job, but at the end of the day, like I'm still just a human being, a normal guy, a taxpayer, just like anybody else. And the one thing that put me in this race more than anything else is realizing that the people who govern our lives in Washington aren't. They don't see it like you and me. I think, despite the corrupting nature of being elected, I think my history speaks for itself. And if you put me in there on the day I come out of office, I'm going to be the same guy that you're hearing right now, the day that I went in. And if nothing else, if my housing policy doesn't convince you, if my opposition to the war in Iran doesn't convince you, if my background of service doesn't convince you, maybe that will. I promise to go in and come out the exact same guy talking to you and everybody else just like I'm doing right now.
Adam, I truly appreciate you taking the time out your busy schedule again, coming here on the show. If you don't mind, I would love to chop it up with you just for a couple minutes after the show. But for those who are watching, I've provided your site and platform. But for those who are listening, how can folks continue to follow up with you and just, follow your campaign?
Sure things. The campaign website is adam4congress.com. So Adam, the number 4, congress.com. Go check me out. Go read my platform. We have a donate link on there. If your listeners can support us, I am trying to stay clean as far as money, not taking APAC or any other special interest money, no corporate PACs. So if you can throw $5, $10, $20 at us, it would actually really help my team. And I want to make sure those guys get paid because they're working hard. And then on socials, find us at Adam Dunigan VA8 on Instagram, and that's probably the best way to get my vibe.
Got you. Adam, look, I truly appreciate it. Look, let's chop it up real quick, so don't go anywhere. But I truly appreciate you taking the time out your schedule to come here on the show. My friends, look, I hope you enjoyed yet another great conversation here on the Arrington Gavin Show. Until next time, look, stay safe, stay informed. I will talk to you for another great combo here on the show.
That's it for tonight on the Arrington Gavin Show. Thanks for tapping in and keeping the conversation alive. Don't forget, stay connected with us on all platforms. Follow at Arrington Gavin on Instagram, Blue Sky, and X, and subscribe to the official Substack for exclusive takes and deep dives you won't get anywhere else. We're here every weeknight, same time, same energy, same real talk. Until next time, stay bold, stay sharp, and stay true. That's what we do on the Arrington Gavin Show. Peace.